What up, peeps? It's your boy Heckin Steve. Welcome back to the channel, and today's going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. Just going to kind of talk more about LaunchBox and emulation in general. So, when it comes to collecting games, some of them are just super far out of reach for a lot of people. Like, if you're collecting PS2, Roller Rose is like $700 or $800. You know what I mean? And I know that people in videos like to show that they found it for $5, $10 here or there. That does not happen as often as you think it is happening. But, also just in general, man, like Pokemon games are like way too expensive these days. So if you can get over the fact that it's not physically in your hands, then emulation is a great alternative and it'll save you thousands of dollars. And, recently I sold a lot of my games, like a lot of my older stuff, and this has pretty much, made it not feel so bad. I don't have nearly everything that I want to get so far because I just recently started building this emulation setup again. But there's really only two things you need to know. So LaunchBox-app.com is the website. It's free. You can use LaunchBox for free, but there is a paid version. And we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Excuse me. But yeah, once you have LaunchBox, and this is like having like a Netflix for your stuff, but you have to set it up and you have to customize it. And it's pretty easy. There's plenty of tutorials on the internet. Like ETA Prime is a really good channel. If you just search ETA Prime and LaunchBox, it'll come up with all kinds of how-tos. But yeah, it's even got some of my computer games loaded in here. So it kind of scraped those from, looks like Steam. That's the wrong peak though, or at least that's the wrong picture for peak. But yeah, so we come over to the consoles. I've got Burnout Revenge on here. It actually runs pretty well. You will need a kind of intermediate to higher end PC to do that. But if you're looking to play anything like PS2 and older, you could pretty much do that on an i3, which is like a pretty low end CPU. You do have to have all the emulators and you have to add them in here. You basically are just telling LaunchBox where all the stuff is on your computer. And then it will scrape the data and it pulls in automatically like the picture artwork, the little descriptions that you see on the sides over here, and all that good stuff. But yeah, so I only have the one 360 game so far, but I'm also collecting 360, and that one's not that far out of hand. It's not that super expensive, so it's no big deal. Now, Nintendo 64, I've got 111, so I pretty much kind of just went through the whole library and picked out the ones that I like, or like that I would possibly want to play one day. So we got some good stuff. I mean, we got Banjo-Kazooie, got Banjo-Tooie, and I have a USB 64 controller, and that's what I would use. Because if you try to do that with a Series X controller, it just doesn't feel the same, But you can get a USB 64 controller on Amazon for like $15 to $20. But yeah, got all the Bombermans, California Speed, Cruisin' USA, Conker's Bad Fur Day. I even got Sculptor's Cut. Now, Sculptor's Cut is a game that I would never buy. I would never pay that much money for that game. Which, what is it, like $1,000? But I'll gladly have it on here for free, basically, because that game's not worth money. And the only reason I have it on here is because I may want to make a video one day of me playing it and getting mad at it. Then you got Diddy Kong Racing. That's a classic. I always loved Diddy Kong Racing a little more than Mario Kart, Donkey Kong 64. You'll see there's a lot of cool stuff on here. And 64, obviously you had GoldenEye, you had the start to Smash Bros, you had Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, you had Mario Party, first Paper Mario, Pokemon Snap, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. All kinds of great stuff. Even the Resident Evil 2 port is great on the 64. And Apparently my Superman is missing a picture, but if it doesn't automatically scrape it, you can just manually add it in. But yeah, there's a lot of great wrestling games on the 64 as well. Backstage Assault is definitely not one of them, but I wanted to have all the wrestling games, so I grabbed them all. And I will show you a place that you can get ROMs. It's not torrents. Now, see, there's a gray area with downloading ROMs, right? Obviously, Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, they don't want you to download their shit for free. But I personally don't have a problem with doing it if it's an old game like this and they're not offering it on any of their services. So, like, it's whatever, you know what I mean? But I already had a lot of these before they added them to the Switch Online service. And the way that I get them is technically not any way that you can be caught, because it's a direct, download from a website. You're not sharing it out, so there's no peer-to-peer. So there's no way to track it, really. But, of course, if you do decide to do this, do it at your own risk. I don't want to be held liable for anybody else's problems. I mean, who does, right? But yeah, so moving on, and I'll show you that site in a minute. A lot of you guys probably know about it if you're familiar with this kind of stuff. But yeah, I had South Park Complete in Box, and it was great, to have it. But having the physical stuff just got boring after a while. Like, obtaining it, it's kind of like you go through a honeymoon phase with having this physical stuff. But then for me, I don't know about every collector, but for me, no matter what it was, like, eventually I want to see it in and out, like, I guess I'm a off and on kind of collector, or a revolving collector. Now, NES, looks like I have every US game. I would probably eventually go through here and get rid of a lot of these, because, I mean, there's probably only about 60 NES games that I would want to play. These actually look like the Bic Lighter logo. But yeah, I mean, I have all of these on here. So, yeah, no desire to buy NES games. No desire to physically store NES games or deal with an old Nintendo. Or spend a lot of money on them. And that's another thing, too. The reason that I like the emulation is because you're not going to be able to have everything you want. Like, it's not a very easy thing to obtain, and it's not a very cheap thing to do, depending on, like, what system you want to have a shit ton of stuff for. Like, I'm not ever going to have every PS2 game that I want, because some of them are just way too expensive. So at least, like, with this, I can kind of satisfy that desire to have it, even though I don't really have it. If that kind of makes sense. At least I can play it. I have access to it. Moving into PS2. I still got a lot of PS2 games to get, and I actually picked up a lot of PS2 games recently, so you guys will be seeing that in the future on a pickups video. So I'm still collecting PS2, and I'm still collecting 360, and everything past PS2 I'm still collecting. Other than GameCube. I'm not going to buy any GameCube games. But basically, in my collection, I'm collecting PS2, original Xbox, PS3, 360, Wii, Wii U, PS4, Xbox One, Xbox Series, PS5, Switch, and Switch 2. And that helps me kind of, stay grounded with the collecting too. But moving over here to Sega Genesis, I have every Sega Genesis game, I think, 781. It's pretty close. And this will be another one that eventually I'll go through and I'll just get rid of the stuff that I have no desire to play, like Andre Agassi Tennis. I don't need it. Animaniacs, I'd probably keep that, though. I used to rent that one a lot as a kid. But some of these, I would keep just to try. Like, I never played Atomic Runner, I don't think. But it looks like it might be kind of cool. But then again, they always made the artworks on these games look cool back in the day. But yeah, I don't need Barbie. Barbie Supermodel? Nah. Or this Barney game. But yeah, got a lot of cool stuff. This Battletech game is pretty sweet. It plays a lot like the... and that's another thing, too. Like, if you If you double click it, it'll boot it up. But then, you know, if you kind of just click it once, you can kind of look at some stuff about it, and it'll show you some related games. And I don't think this necessarily pulls them from your collection. I think it's just like recommended based on the data that it scraped. But yeah, you can scroll down here and see the description of it and everything. Now, the big box mode, that's the pay mode for LaunchBox. And I think it's like $30 for a lifetime. So you only have to pay like once. Or it might be more. I can't remember exactly what the price was. I know that I bought the lifetime so that I wouldn't ever have to go without. But that allows you to do the big box mode, and we'll kind of pop into that real quick. And this will allow you to use the controller to kind of navigate your menus and stuff. So it takes a second to boot up.
Initializing big box.
And you can fully customize this setup and everything. So like it'll kind of give you like some recommendations based on what you have in your collection here. So I am using the Series X controller to kind of navigate through this. And then see, you've got some recently added stuff, because I've been putting a lot of 3DS games on here, so those are populating a lot. But then you come down here, and this is a certain theme. Like, you can change your themes and stuff. You press B on your Xbox controller, and you can manage your themes. But yeah, then it starts to go in here. So we got 3DS, go in there. And you can add music to these backgrounds too. But yeah, this is the theme that I like the most. It's kind of like the scroll wheel that you'll see in other emulation things like Hyperspin. But yeah, it's cool. Like, it shows you the cartridge and stuff, and then you get some screenshots here. And then if you have an Emo Movies account, which is another website that has like video snippets of games, you can sync that up. And instead of having a picture there where it says like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, it would have like the video snippet. Now that's obviously going to take up a lot of space on the hard drive because it's, you know, thousands of videos for your games. But yeah, I mean, I got a decent amount of 3DS games so far. I even got Duck Dynasty because it looked like it was silly. But mostly, I haven't downloaded all the 3DS games I want yet, but I've been going in ABC order. So, like, I think I stopped at, like, the M's. Well, we got the Snake Eater. And I like this layout and stuff. It's super cool. And then, I got the Pokemon games first. So, I don't have any of the N games or O or anything past P for Pokemon. So yeah, it kind of just loops back around. And in the 64, same situation, you know, it looks nice and presentable. Even has the cartridge on there. So I think that's pretty cool. And then I'm pretty sure if you press A on it, it'll take you to this where you can continue to, like, you know, continue on to play it and stuff. But it gives you a little more information. I can move around the box art with my stick. And you can flip the box. Whoops. There we go. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It just makes it a little more fancy than just stuff on the screen. Especially if you get the Emo account. Or the Emo Movies. And you can add your movies on here. I think I actually have all the DS games that I want. And speaking of DS, let's scroll down here to the M's to showcase the Mega Man Star Force games. I'm super excited for that Star Force collection that's coming out. But yeah, those games are really expensive and they're hard to find, you know, especially complete. So that's another thing too, is like having expensive stuff. You don't necessarily want to like pull it out and, you know, touch it, pause. You don't want to mess around with it too much because it's expensive. You don't want to damage it, you know. At least here, I can kind of get a glimpse of it without having to worry about devaluing it, if you will. Just to have access to play them, you know. And, oh yeah, let's look at PS1. So PS1, I don't know why it took us to Tekken 3. But yeah, I've got just about every PS1 game that I would ever want to play. You know, gotta have your Tony Hawk's, Twisted Metal 1, 2, 3, and 4, Vagrant Story. Do I have Persona? I feel like I would have Persona. I would never buy Persona because it's like a $500 game. Let's make sure they put it in the S's for Shin Megami. Yeah, there it is. See, this game's like $500. I would never buy that. Because that's just too much money for a PlayStation 1 game. And it's too much money for something that I could just obtain and play. You know what I mean? That's just me. Also, I've kind of realized recently that I like to collect things that are not worth that much money. So that if anything does happen to it, I don't really worry about it too much. I'm like, oh, well, you know, a couple $100. No big deal. I don't know, that's weird. But I know I'm not like every other collector, but yeah, that's pretty much the gist of how big box mode works. You can add music to it, you can add to videos, you can do all kinds of stuff with it. Okay, just click exit here. I don't want to actually play any ROMs on the video today. But that's pretty much it, you know, as far as how it works and everything. I'll go ahead and pull LaunchBox back up. Now, I'll show you the site that I use that's been around since 1997. And last year, there was a time when you couldn't really access any of the first-party Nintendo games because of a lawsuit. But you can totally do that now. And the website I use for most games that I download is Vim's Lair. And this is where you can also get your emulators. Now, you can go directly to the emulator websites and get them. They're always free on computer. They might cost money on Android, but who the fuck's doing that on their phone? I do have ads enabled on this website because that's really the only way you can support them. But yeah, as you can see here, I clicked on Emulation Layer, and this basically brings you to a list of every single emulator that you could pretty much think of, for the most part. You got your DuckStation. And then what you would do, you know, you would just take these, save them to your computer, and then tell LaunchBox where they are. And then that's pretty much it. You'll have to individually go in to these emulators and set your controllers, right? Because LaunchBox won't configure your controllers. So every emulator that you use, you still have to configure it. But once you do it once, that's it. Then every time you boot a game through LaunchBox, it's going to boot the game, and then you're in there. So yeah, that's your emulators. And then even stuff like PS2, right? You see right here in the little font, it says requires a BIOS to play. So you click on that, and then you can get you a BIOS. Oh man, we got Amish women. Leaves nothing to imagination. Weird ass ads. Okay, so the vault, that's where you find your ROMs, okay? Your games. Now, I'm not going to download any of them in this video. But basically, like, what you would do is you come over here to your list. You got your handhelds, you got your console. So let's say, like, if you wanted to start off with PS2, you could click PlayStation 2. And then any of these letters will take you to those games. So I'm going to go to R. And then you can scroll down. And, well, you know what? There it is. Rule of Rose. So there's your $800 game that you could get for free. And tell the resellers to suck your dick. You're not paying it. And then you just click that download button right there. Bam! Then you got it. You don't even need a VPN to do this. Because it's a direct download from their server. It's not trackable like a PvP would be. Or not a PvP. A peer-to-peer. A P2P. Peer-to-peer service like a torrent. And see, that actually is bad. You don't want a torrent because that makes you give it back. Like as you download it, you're uploading it to another peer. That is bad. You don't want to do that. But with this, it's just a direct download. So you're not giving it to anybody. So you're technically not sharing it. So you're just accessing something on the internet. It's totally fine. I've been doing this for decades, off and on different computers, and never had a problem. Never got any kind of letter from the internet provider. Anything when you download it directly like this. So basically, you would just click the download button. It would download it. You can only do one game at a time this way. So if you're looking to download entire console sets, you'll have to go to a different website like Arcade Punks. That's a pretty good one for that kind of stuff. But for me, I don't want to have every single game. So doing it one at a time is fine, because I obviously I don't want to have every single PS2 game. That would be nuts. It would take up way too much space, and I would never use it. But yeah, even your Maddens, all that stuff is on here, and I'd say for the most part, like, all this stuff works just fine. So we go back to the vault, and if a game's not available, like for example, I ran into this. Like I was saying last year. Let me go to Game Boy here, and then we'll go to Pokemon. So if a game's not available, it'll actually say, it'll be like, this was removed because it was, like, Sony requested us to remove this, or Nintendo requested us to remove this, so we took it off of here. Okay, why is it being slow now? Of course, it would be slow right now when I'm trying to show it off in a video. But yeah, okay, like Donkey Kong's right here, so we'll just click on that. Or actually, there's The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. They could be doing maintenance on this website too, because it is like pretty late at night. But yeah, I mean, you get the gist. I mean, with the Roller Rose thing, that's pretty much how it works. So basically, if you see a game, or if you go to a game and it says this was removed, as requested by Nintendo, then that means you can't get it right now. But always periodically check back, because, I mean, I literally just got all these Pokemon games like a couple weeks ago. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say today. I feel good about it. Emulation is great. When it comes to resellers, I mean, like, overall, like, the whole reseller culture and just retro gaming becoming more popular in general, whether it be for reselling purposes or just more people getting interested in these games from, a couple decades ago. Everything's getting more expensive, man. So if you just want to play the games and you don't really care about physically holding it in your hand, and trust me, man, for most people, once you hold it for like a couple of days, couple weeks, you're gonna be like, I'd rather just have the money back. Because that's what happened with me with the majority of my stuff. But I still like to collect, so that's why I didn't give up my entire collection. I want to have some stuff hanging out. This is a great alternative for that. Save you thousands of dollars. Like, if I was going to buy all these Pokemon games, well, the 3DS ones would be a bad example for that, because those are generally not that expensive. But, like, if I was going to buy all the Pokemon games for the Nintendo DS, we're looking at probably like $1,000+ dollars. Because, like, Heart Gold, Soul Silver, those are like $200 a piece. Black 2 and White 2 are probably like $200 a piece. So right there, those 4 games is $800. So yeah, it'd be well over $1,000 to have all those complete in box. This is just much better. You know what I mean? So hopefully this video helps you out. I'm sure a lot of people already know about emulation, but this is how I do it. And I don't need it to be super fancy. Honestly, I don't even use big box that often, even though I can. Because it's just fine to, like, do it this way. You know what I mean? Like, it's better than just a list of titles in a, like a regular ass, like, folder. You know what I mean? So, yeah. That's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching. Catch you guys next time. Peace.